Hi, everyone. Welcome to another week of a LinkedIn Live. And today we are going to talk about a super sexy topic, CRMs. And in fact, the title of this LinkedIn Live is Your CRM Matters. So you need to choose wisely. So if you have a business of really any size, you are probably going to hear the words CRM. So let's talk a little bit about that, shall we? So what are CRMs and how the heck do I choose one? Well, we're going to do the last part a little bit later, the how to choose, but a CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management. A CRM tool, wow, gosh, I haven't had my second cup of coffee. A CRM tool helps you manage your relationships with your customers, your prospects, your leads, and it can be very basic and it can be really broad, include other tools as well. So if you have a CRM tool and you're watching, whether you're watching this live or later, go ahead and put in the comments what CRM tool you use right now, if any. And I'm going to be telling you in this LinkedIn Live my experience with CRM tools because I've used so many. And I'm also just going to double check, make sure I'm live. If my moderator could tell me if I'm live or not, that would be awesome. And we will just keep going. All right. So CRM, customer relationship management. It's a way to organize not just your customers, but any leads or prospects. Just saying that one more time. A CRM is typically not email marketing software. It's not a CMS and it's not a lead gen necessarily. So email marketing software, probably the one everyone has used at least some point in their business is MailChimp. And MailChimp really was started as purely a way to market emails. It's expanded quite a bit since then, but MailChimp, was one of kind of the big ones because they had a free offer. So you could use MailChimp for free up to so many contacts, and it was very easy to use. So that's a good example of email marketing software. CMS stands for Content Management System. That's about managing content, not necessarily people. So content management system, most of you have probably heard of, is WordPress. WordPress websites manage content that is on that website. And a lead gen tool can be anything from a landing pages software to, let's say, a quiz software. It's a way to generate leads. That's all it is. Now, some CRMs, some customer relationship management tools, have all of this stuff put together into one, but most of them do not. And I'm just going to take a peek in the comments and see how we're doing, and also pull up the notes that somehow I forgot to pull up. Oh boy. Okay. Let's see if I missed anything. No, I don't think so. All right. So how I started with a CRM, I had to really think about this. Like, when was the first time I remember, managing people inside of some sort of technology? And that would be when I started my nonprofit, Blue Fairy, and that was 2003. And we used Excel. We used an Excel spreadsheet to manage our donors and their gifts and everything about them. We used Excel for 3 years. It was painful, but that's how we got started. It was free. It was relatively easy to use, but it was it was really painful. But we were starting from scratch. We didn't have a single contact either, so we didn't really need some built out massive CRM at that time. But that's how we started, was Excel. Hopefully you're not using Excel today. All right, so let's talk about CRMs. They generally fall into 3 buckets, in my opinion. They can be custom for your business, where the CRM is built from the ground up specifically for your business. They can be industry-based, or they can be sort of general CRMs for any type of business, regardless of the industry. And I'm going to start with talking about custom CRMs and the ones that I have worked with. So, and the pros and cons. So, the pro to custom CRM is obvious, right? It's going to have everything that you want and need to track about your customer, about future customers. That's the big pro. The con to custom CRM is it may not integrate well with other products. If it's custom, you are going to need someone to stay on top of it. And I can give you two really great examples of where a custom CRM worked and then where it didn't work. So one example, I worked on a research study at UCLA for 3 years, and they developed custom software specifically for tracking all of the research participant information. It was very basic. It was purely a database where we had to put in both the quantitative data, but the qualitative data as well. And that was all we did with it. That data was then sent to the CDC and RTI, who were the partners in this research study, and they analyzed the data. They broke down the numbers. So we were never in a position where we had to do really any kind of reporting. In fact, everything was done manually on paper first by the people who were leading the study and leading groups, including me. And then that data was taken from an actual piece of paper and put into the system and sent securely to RTI and CDC every night. And that was how it was done. And it worked really well. And most people didn't need to be on that custom CRM, just the person who was doing the data entry, which ended up being me in the end. I took over someone else's job as well as my own. And that's the price of efficiency, by the way. But that's a great example of where a custom CRM for a very particular project for a specific amount of time, this was a 5-year grant, really makes sense. Now, on the con side, I worked for a wine company, and for whatever reason, the president decided they needed a custom CRM. So it was built, and then they had no one to fix it when it went wrong. I mean, no one. And the people who built it didn't provide any additional customer service. It was really clunky. It didn't integrate with anything. Now, this was 10 years ago when there probably weren't as many options for an industry specific CRM as there are now. But everyone in the company hated that CRM. They hated opening it. They hated putting in data. They just couldn't stand it. And so that's an example, I feel, of when a custom CRM really isn't serving your business as well as it could. And if you have ever used a custom CRM, let me know. Let's see. HubSpot and Salesforce, HubSpot. Hey, hi, Santish. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. We are going to talk about HubSpot. So hold on to that. We are definitely going to talk about HubSpot. So that's custom CRMs. Let's talk about industry-based CRMs. And that's exactly what it sounds like. It's a CRM that's created for a particular industry. And I think probably the most successful CRM of all time in terms of not only doing its job, but then other people adapted it. Going to nerd out a little bit here is until the 1950s, airline reservations were done manually. I mean, it was people in a room with physical cards that had the inventory, the case, the seats, and the airlines. Everything was manual. I mean, can you imagine that? I mean, people didn't travel like they do now or will eventually when COVID's over, but still, that's a lot of work. So American Airlines wanted a system that would allow real-time access to flight details in all of its offices. And they wanted integration. They wanted automation of its booking and ticket processes. So they introduced, American Airlines, the very first electronic reservation system in 1952. And then in 1964, they took it a step further and went from that original product they developed to one called SABRA, and that stands for Semi-Automated Business Research Environment. Well, that SABRA Corporation, they actually spun it off in 2000, but it is now a travel technology company, and it is the largest global distribution let's see, global distribution systems provider for air bookings in North America. So American Airlines wanted to solve a problem not only for them, but it ended up solving a problem for every other airline in North America. So that's a great example of not only an industry specific product, but originally it was custom. It was custom for American Airlines, but they were the pioneers. And so they ended up creating something that everybody else wanted as well. All right, back to other industry specific, but look that up. It's a really interesting story. So I have used a lot of nonprofit CRMs for my nonprofit. So when we finally realized an Excel spreadsheet was not going to cut it anymore, we signed up for GiftWorks. I don't think they exist anymore. And actually, we loved GiftWorks. It was very intuitive. It was very easy to use. It was an amazing CRM, and it was very inexpensive. But then they were bought by another company, and we couldn't afford it. The price was too much. And I'll get into pricing when we talk about how to choose a CRM for your business. So we switched to Donor Perfect. And Donor Perfect was not great. I mean, even though it can be fully customized for your nonprofit, and they did. So they took the information we had and they imported it. That's a whole nother topic. Maybe if I have time, we'll cover it. When you go from one CRM to the next, it can be very painful. But Donor Perfect just it wasn't very friendly. It wasn't very intuitive. The only time we really liked using but Donor Perfect was this very, very rare moment in time when it integrated with Network for Good. And Network for Good was our payment processing system. So there was one year where those two systems spoke to each other, and it was great because you could open up the CRM and there the person's gift would be already processed. You know, it was really, really fantastic. Yeah. And it cut our work in half until for some reason the two companies had a falling out and they decided they didn't like each other anymore. So then we were stuck again with Donor Perfect for the CRM part and a separate payment processing system. And finally we ended up leaving Donor Perfect. And I think I have this down. Yeah. So I'll tell you what we ended up choosing, but we finally left Donor Perfect. We were just really ready to find something else because it just wasn't easy to use. Another example of industry-based CRM, I mentioned that wine company that I used to work for. Well, now there is a CRM called Grapevines, Vines, Grapevines, for beverage companies. And it looks like it was originally designed for businesses that are in wine. Grapevines. So that's another example of just an industry-based CRM. If you have any examples of custom CRMs or industry-based CRMs, be sure to put those in the comments. I like to kind of have a conversation. I don't want it to be me just talking the whole time. So let me take a peek at the comments. All right, great. Okay. And again, if you have any CRMs that I don't mention, please put those in the comments as well. I think we're always looking for something that works well for our business. And it's so easy sometimes to figure out what that's going to be. All right, moving on. Let's talk about more general CRMs. And what I mean by that is they were not created for a specific industry. They were created to be broad, to be able to be tailored to your business to some extent. And I think some of the most common ones are Salesforce. A few people in the comments already mentioned HubSpot, Zoho. Monday.com originally was more of a competitor to Slack, but now they seem to be in the CRM business. I've only had experience with Monday.com on sort of the Slack side of things. I didn't even know they were CRM until we were looking to switch. Agile CRM. So let me tell you about my experience with these sort of general CRMs. I worked with a company that used Salesforce, and they used it in a very limited way for all their inbound calls. And I found it relatively easy to use, but it is a very robust system. It's not cheap, and it can grow with your business though. But I've only used Salesforce that one time that I'm aware of. And then let's see what else I have here. I spoke about Monday.com. And we'll get into this a little bit more, but originally for Cancer U, we used Agile CRM. So not Agile, the process and software development, but Agile CRM. And we used that for a business until it didn't work anymore. And we recently switched, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. And of course, that was the genesis of this LinkedIn Live, was just the stress of like trying to pick a CRM. All right, so let's talk about how you choose a CRM. I'm going to take a moment. I'm getting very hoarse again. I hate being hoarse. So I have this method for choosing CRM. I think of it in a way. I think of it as like looking for an apartment to rent. So when I left Los Angeles and moved to Alabama, please don't ask me why. That's a really long answer. But I moved here 6 years ago. I had to find an apartment to rent. And so I looked at 4 different things when I was looking for an apartment. Stay with me. I looked at the size, I looked at the price, I looked at the neighborhood and the amenities. And then I took those 4 things and prioritized them. That was really, really critical. So at the time, I wanted an apartment that had at least 800 square feet. I didn't care if that was 1 or 2 bedrooms, but I wanted 800 square feet minimum. It needed to be under $900 a month. And I really wanted a dishwasher and some way of getting a washer and dryer in the apartment. Like those were the amenities I wanted, because I was coming from a house and I was spoiled with a washer and dryer right there in the house. And I actually had not had a dishwasher in over a decade. So I desperately wanted one. And then I prioritized. And so for me, when I was looking for this apartment, the number one thing was cost. Like it had to be below $900. That was a hard ceiling. The second thing that was important to me was size. It's kind of a tie between size and amenities, but I did want it to be a certain size. I knew how much stuff I had, and I didn't want to get a storage unit or anything like that. Third was amenities, and fourth was neighborhood. So since neighborhood was the least important thing to me, when I went to look for an apartment, I only focused on the other 3. And I ended up finding one apartment for rent that fit my criteria. And it turned out it was actually in a really great neighborhood in Birmingham. So I lived in that apartment for 2 years. So I'm using that as an example of when you're thinking about choosing your CRM, it's very, very similar. So size, just like I wanted an apartment to be a certain size, think about the size of your CRM. Can that company grow with your business? Or do they cater only to small businesses? Or do they cater to a specific industry and you think you might branch out? So you really need to think about the size of the CRM and if they can grow with you. 2, the price. If you are bootstrapping it or just starting out, you may want to consider how much the CRM costs. I mean, they can be very expensive. And that is originally why we went with Agile CRM. They were the least expensive, but also had the most integrations. And they had that perfect combination. And so that's why we chose Agile CRM at the beginning. Number 3, features. So features of a CRM are sort of like amenities in an apartment. So what features do you need, first of all? What are deal breakers? And what features do you want? That they would be great, but if it doesn't work out, that's okay. And how important are the features to you and your team? How are they going to serve your business? So when you are making this decision and you have people working for you, you want them to have buy-in. It's really important. Otherwise, they're not going to use the CRM. They'll be extremely resistant. So you want to make sure you get buy-in from people. And then last but not least, integrations. So I think of integrations is very similar to neighborhood. Will the CRM play nice with others? Other tools in your business, do they integrate well? Is it difficult to connect the tools? Are you going to have to use Zapier for every single connection between the tools? And there's nothing wrong with Zapier. I like it. It does exactly what it's supposed to do, but it doesn't always work. So if you can get a direct integration from your CRM to other tools in your business, that for me is a big plus. Okay, so does anybody have anything else that they are looking for in a CRM? If you're watching this live, post it in the comments. If you're watching this in the replay, still post in the comments. I usually do my best to reply. So let me go back to my nonprofit for a second. So as I said, we used Donor Perfect for many years after GiftWorks became too expensive. And I hated it. It was not user friendly and it wasn't easy to create reports. But there was that 1 year where it integrated with Network for Good, which I mentioned before. So that was that 1 year where that integration, where they played nice with others, really paid off. And after that, it sucked. Originally it cut our work in half, but then when they didn't play nice anymore, it sucked. And so I was keeping my eyes open for a CRM specific to the nonprofit industry that could work with my nonprofit. The size it was could grow with us. Cost, very important. We had a hard cap on how much we could spend. And we ended up switching from Donor Perfect to FlipCause. And FlipCause is a relatively new software company. They started out mainly as a payment processor and fundraising tool, but then they added their CRM. So when we switched to them a couple years ago, I want to say 2 or 3 now, the CRM was still in beta, but it's not in beta anymore. And I love it. I love that there's one platform that I can go on from a nonprofit and every single thing is there, except for grant tracking. I would say that's the only thing that's not there. But we know who our donors are. We, know all the gifts they've ever given. Everything's being processed right there. So we don't have to go to a separate payment processor. And it's very user friendly. It's just very approachable. So I don't worry about other people using the account. The customer service is top notch. I love it. So that's an example we switched. Still was not easy to switch. And even though they imported our database from Donor Perfect, a lot of things did not make it over. So it's always a little painful going from one CRM to the next, which is why you want to be really secure in your decision about the CRM. For Cancer U, this is what we ended up doing. So like I said from the beginning, we used Agile CRM. And we chose Agile because it had all the features we wanted. So it combined both the help desk, the sales, and the marketing. And the email marketing was all built in. So everything was there. It kind of played nice with others, but we did have a lot of zaps with Zapier in place. And again, the more zaps you have, the more likely that it's not going to work as well, or there will be occasional errors. The other reason we chose Agile was affordable, and also their customer service was outstanding. So when we made that decision, hey, we need to get started here, we decided to use Agile. And it was pretty easy to use. It had a good interface as well. But again, we chose it because of the cost. We chose it because it had all the features we wanted. It probably had the worst integration for sure. And what else? Size-wise, it was the right CRM for us for sure. They definitely cater to small businesses, not industry specific either. But when we decided we needed to leave Agile, this is what happened. So first of all, their customer service just fell apart. I think possibly that they just have grown really quickly over the last year and they've hired a lot more people, but their customer service completely fell apart. So when we started having problems, we couldn't get them solved, which was super, super frustrating and irritating. And most of the time the problems were on their end, not ours. It was their server. So we started realizing that people weren't getting our emails. Well, when someone joins Cancer U, there's a whole onboarding sequence. It's really important that members get acquainted with our platform and what we can offer them. We started realizing even our regular newsletters, which are twice a month, weren't going out, or they were always ending up in a spam folder. And then sometimes things would go out and they would look really wonky and they didn't look that way, on a test. you name it, like stuff just kind of started falling apart. So I was like, what are we going to do? We have to pick another CRM. Agile was so affordable. So I asked my peers. I asked my startup health peeps. I asked my Bronze Valley people. I asked some people in private Facebook groups. I just got feedback like, what do you use and why do you use it? And a lot of people who run startup companies who are kind of bootstrapping the way we are, they use a CRM as well as an email marketing tool. So they use a CRM that may not have that built in, and they kind of use two systems. One thing I knew I wanted was I wanted one system. The beauty of Agile CRM is it is one system. You still had to use a lot of zaps to make things work in terms of getting the people who come to your website into your database and all that stuff, but the email marketing was already built in. And I really did not want to have a CRM and an email marketing separate. It was really important that those things be together. So that's a good example of features. I wanted it to play nice with others. I really wanted to get away from the Zapier if possible, because it just felt like we were putting things together with duct tape. It was so frustrating. I know I've said that probably 5 times, but it was. And so features were really important to us. The integration was really important to us. The ability to grow with our business, definitely, probably a lesser priority, but it was very important because it seemed like Agile wasn't going to be able to do it. And then, of course, price. We were very concerned about price, but when you realize how much time you're saving when something works well for your business, and you do the math, you realize you really are saving money. However, if we had bought Agile at full price, well, we couldn't have right now where we are in our company. We could not have paid for Agile full price. However, they have a startup program. So if you decide to choose a CRM like a HubSpot or Salesforce, one of the big ones, see what discounts they have. Ask for a discount. Do they have a start program like HubSpot? Because HubSpot's start program is 90% off the first year if you qualify. And we did 90% off. Now, that's how they get you in, right? They hook you in because the second year, it's not 90% off. I think it's still like 60% off or something, but it's still a good deal the second year. But that's how they get you in. And then one of my lovely peers, Linda Van Horn, she's fantastic. She did a LinkedIn Live with me. She has been using HubSpot for just about everything in her business. And so she gave me, and in addition to the demo I watched, she also gave me kind of a behind the scenes look at her business and how she was using HubSpot. She uses it for lead generation. She uses it for sales. She uses it for marketing. And that includes, email. She uses it for landing pages. I mean, she uses it in pretty much every aspect of her business. And while she would probably be the first to say it's expensive, she feels like it's worth it because she can tell you at all times who her prospects are, who the leads are, who her customers are, where they are in the buyer journey. And that stuff is really important. And that was a piece of Agile that was actually missing. It was kind of hard to track the buyer journey, and it was very hard to pull any data, any statistics. So we decided to make the leap. We got HubSpot. We've had one onboarding. We have one more onboarding session coming up. It's been a lot. And in order to make this leap effectively, we really, what's the word I'm looking for? Shortened is not the word, but that's what we did. We really looked at our contact database, and we used to have 3,000 contacts. And I can't think of the word right now. If you can think of the word I'm looking for, put it in the comments, the verb. But we really weaned, not the best word, but I'll use it. We weaned our contact list down. We whittled, maybe it's whittled. We got it down from like over 3,000 contacts to 2,000. So we got rid of about a third of our contacts because we wanted to make sure we went into HubSpot with a really clean list. And also with HubSpot, even with this startup program, if you have over 1,000 marketing contacts, it costs more money. So, we really looked at every single thing. Like I said, we're still onboarding. We haven't sent out a newsletter in more than a month. but we're in the home stretch with it. And so far, we love everything about HubSpot. And no, we're not an affiliate, but it's very intuitive. There are a lot of features. They play nice with others, even without Zapier. They integrate fully. So far, so good. There is a lot to learn, especially how to use every aspect of it effectively. But so far, we are really happy with it. And the customer service has been just outstanding, which is really important to me. So there you have it. So that is, hopefully, why your CRM matters. And you will choose wisely. And I will leave this open just a moment. Oh, okay. So good to know. There's a 2-minute delay. That's going to give me time to drink some water. And then if you have any questions, throw them in the chat and I'll be happy to answer them. And can my moderator, are there any questions on Facebook at all? Could you take a peek on Cancer Use Facebook? All right, so I am going to go back in. So if there are no questions, we're going to find out in just a moment if there are any questions. Gosh, I don't have like any jokes or anything. I got nothing about CRMs. That's all I've got. That's all I've got for today. Another thing I will put in, if there's a particular topic you want me to cover for these LinkedIn Lives, my goal is to do one every week on Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I cover healthcare, especially as it relates to patient advocacy and cancer. I cover business, especially as it relates to startup businesses, and especially again in healthcare and health tech. And I also talk about writing. So I did do, I think my last one or the one before was all about writing. So those are kind of the 3 things I cover. Occasionally I'll talk about podcasting as well, but if there's anything in particular that you want me to talk about in a LinkedIn Live, or you think you would be a great interview subject, I always like having an interview subject on LinkedIn Live. It just makes it more fun. It's not fully dependent on me anymore. Okay, looks like we don't have any more comments. So I'm going to say goodbye. And again, if there's something in particular you want me to cover on this LinkedIn Live every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Throw in the comments, or better yet, send me a message on LinkedIn, and we'll do it. And if you think you would be a good candidate to be interviewed on LinkedIn Live, and it kind of falls in those categories, it's either about writing, it's about healthcare, it's about business. Again, especially in healthcare, if it's about cancer, let me know. Send me a private message on LinkedIn. Thank you to my moderator. We had some technical issues before we went live, but it seems like it's all good now. And one thing I don't like about StreamYard, you also have to choose your streaming services wisely, is I don't get to have like a fun background with StreamYard, but oh well. So far, less technical issues than what we were using before. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll talk to you next Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.